Once upon a time, in a kingdom far, far away, there was a kind and beautiful princess named Snow White. Snow White had hair as black as coal, lips as red as a rose, and skin as white as snow. She was loved by everyone who met her, but her stepmother, the queen, was very jealous of her beauty. The queen had a magic mirror that she would ask every day, "Mirror, mirror, on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And every day, the mirror would reply, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true. But Snow White is even fairer than you." This made the queen very angry, and she decided to get rid of Snow White. She ordered her huntsmen to take Snow White far into the forest and leave her there. The huntsman, though sad, took Snow White to the forest. But when he saw how scared and sad she was, he couldn't do it. "Run away and hide," he told her. "Never come back." Snow White ran and ran until she came across a tiny cottage in the middle of the forest. She was so tired that she fell asleep on one of the 7 tiny beds inside. When the 7 dwarfs who lived in the cottage came home, they found her sleeping there. The dwarfs were kind and curious. They gently woke Snow White and listened as she told her story. "You can stay with us," said Dopey, the youngest dwarf, with a big smile. Snow White was so happy and thankful, and she agreed to help the dwarfs with their home in exchange for their kindness. The next day, the queen discovered that Snow White was still alive and living in the forest. She was furious. The queen disguised herself as an old peddler woman and visited the cottage with a basket of shiny, red apples. She gave Snow White a beautiful, shiny apple and told her it was a special treat. Snow White, being kind and trusting, took a bite of the apple. But the apple was poisoned. Snow White fell to the ground, unable to move. The queen cackled with glee and left, thinking she had won. When the dwarfs came home, they found Snow White lying still. They were heartbroken. They gently placed her in a glass coffin, and they stood guard over her, hoping that somehow she would wake up. One day, a prince from a neighboring kingdom happened to wander into the forest and saw Snow White in the glass coffin. He was so struck by her beauty and her sad story that he kissed her gently on the lips. Suddenly, Snow White's eyes fluttered open. She had been awakened by the prince's kiss. The dwarfs and Snow White were overjoyed. The prince invited Snow White to his castle, where they lived happily ever after. As for the wicked queen, she was never seen again. The kingdom celebrated Snow White and her friends, and they lived happily ever after, knowing that kindness and love always win in the end. And so, dear children, remember to be kind and true, just like Snow White and her 7 little friends. For kindness and love are the most magical things of all.